If you missed part 1 of this video, I'm going to advise you to go and check it out, bro. We started Percy's childhood and we go all the way up through his college days. If you hadn't seen it, make sure you click the little card, go check it out, and then come back. For everybody else, we're gonna pick up right where we left off. Percy gets drafted into the NFL.
Yeah, you'll never know quitter, 'cause I'ma go get her.
Percy Harvin clocked a 4.41 at the combine, and he was drafted late in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings. It was here that Percy would play with another legend, Brett Favre. Percy's migraines actually started causing him issues immediately in the NFL. He missed minicamp, the rookie symposium, and some of his first training camp. But when the season started, Percy was ready to go. It wasn't like all roses from that point on. He missed multiple practices during that season, and he even missed a game at the end of the year. All of these were due to migraines. Some of it was called illness and stuff in the beginning, but we came to find out all of this was due to his migraine issue. Amazingly, this did not stop Percy from having an amazing rookie season. He caught 60 passes for 790 yards and 6 TDs. He ran it a few times, had 135 yards, and he had well over 1,000 kick return yards, along with 2 TDs. So despite all of his issues, he actually won AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. He even got a Pro Bowl spot as a returner. Due to some technicalities, Deshaun Jackson actually made it as a returner and as a receiver, so then he was just a receiver and needed somebody else for the return spot. Percy was second behind Deshaun Jackson. However, he declined the trip and he was unable to go. Why? Because he was dealing with, say it with me, migraine issues. The next year, Percy actually had a situation where he passed out at practice. This is obviously associated with his migraine. I don't know if it was from a migraine or if it had something to do with the medication. I've read both. Like, sometimes it's hard to just get a straight answer. But either way, it's still all connected to his migraine issue. We're gonna say migraine issues a lot in this video. I mean, can you imagine trying to be a pro football player and having to deal with this, bro? Like, bruh, I don't think I could take it. I'm gonna be honest. But despite all of that, Percy put up 2,000 all-purpose yards once again during his second season. Now, at one point, Percy was actually diagnosed with sleep apnea. And during the treatment for this, he actually thought he had cured his migraine situation altogether. Again, conflicting reports, but I saw one report say he went 2 years without a migraine. I saw another that said like 6 to 8 months. Either way, this was a huge deal, and he thought he was basically cured of this situation. But one day soon after, they did return, bro. And that had to be like the worst day of his life, right? Either way, okay, cool. We've been dealing with them all this time. Let's just keep dealing with them. Third season in the league. Percy opened up that year with an absolute bang. Like, it was his time. He actually had mostly a full off season without having to deal with an injury or surgery, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, he never had a normal off season, like, ever. And in his first 6 games of the 2012 season, he went for over 100 yards receiving in every one of them. But you know what happened after that. Actually, not migraine issues. He went down with an ankle injury. Now, this ankle injury is going to come back up later in the video, so just remember, he went down with an ankle injury and he was placed on injury reserve. All right, that's all we're going to say for now. We'll come back to this later, though. The next season, the Seahawks traded for Percy, took a huge risk, and gave him a $67 million contract. Now, this man always had issues, bro. Now, I don't think people really understood, like, maybe the level that the issues were, but 67 million and 25 of that was completely guaranteed. Not long after, my boy Percy, man, Poe Percy, bro, he tore his labrum while training in the offseason. He legit like played 1 regular season game for the Seahawks. Just like in college, he was able to get back for the championship game. Yeah, the Super Bowl. You remember the one where the Seahawks was just whooping up on the Broncos. It was 22-0 at halftime. And then the second half rolled around and people was like, okay, the Broncos could maybe get back in it. Then they kicked it off to Percy Harvin. He took it 87 yards for a touchdown. And it was just over after that. Like, there was no more hope. So at that point, despite all of his issues, Percy Harvin had won a state championship in goddamn Pop Warner, state championship in high school, 2 national championships in college, and a Super Bowl in the NFL. Okay, so now would be a great time to mention that Percy had some issues like in the locker room, man. When he was with the Vikings, he actually had a situation where he threw weights at his coach, Brad Childress. This was after Brad Childress suggested that maybe Percy was milking his ankle injury. Percy also had similar issues in the Seahawks locker room. Had gotten into a few arguments with a couple of his teammates, obviously barely played, and then after the season, he was traded away. He played for the Jets in 2015. Then in 2016, Percy announced his retirement. But he came out of retirement and played for the Bills a bit in 2016. Very short stint. The migraines returned and Percy was then forced to retire for good this time. And it just really sucks because Percy's career was basically just stolen from him by the migraine issue. Now again, like I said in the first video, I know he had a bunch of other injuries and we've covered most of them here. But there was a theory in an essay posted in 2013 that connects them all together. And it's very interesting. Now it's just a theory, but it's very plausible. You feel me? Now, this essay is stupid long, okay? I'll link it in the description. Please, remember the link is in the description. Like I'm telling myself this. So if you want to go and read it, feel free, but I'm going to summarize right now. Basically tell you the important stuff that you need to know. There's clinical research that shows people who are prone to frequent and severe migraine can develop something called central sensitization, which is defined as a state of neurological dysfunction in which sensory stimuli become heightened and extremely unpleasant. Now there's evidence that many people that suffer from migraine retain at least a small degree of this even just at baseline when they're normal, when they're not experiencing a migraine. So they're always a little bit bothered by bright lights and certain scents, motion sickness, whatever the case may be. They remain sensitive to this stuff pretty much all the time. Now when the migraines are really severe over a long period of time, remember Percy been getting these since he was 10, it can extend the pain and symptoms in other parts of the body. And the percentages of people with chronic migraines having issues in other parts of the body is extremely high. Some of the things people with frequent migraines experience at a high clip: chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowels, and the one that the study actually focuses on, chronic pain disorder. That's the one, chronic pain disorder. So if Percy did develop central sensitization during his long history of having migraine, there's a really good chance that he could have developed a chronic pain disorder. And yeah, there's actually some stuff to back this up. Check this out. It's kind of crazy. So you remember that ankle injury that I told you to remember that we was talked about earlier? I know I've been throwing a lot at you. Anyway, when Percy was at Minnesota, he was diagnosed with a minor ankle sprain. He was only supposed to be out 2 to 4 weeks tops. Now he plays for an NFL team who obviously is going to have all of the technology that they need to be able to diagnose this very, very common injury. 2 to 4 weeks. Now how does a 2 to 4 week injury end up putting Percy on injured reserve? If he had developed a chronic pain disorder, even after the ankle should have been well enough for him to play on, he still would have been experiencing pain so severe that he was unable to play. And it was reported that weeks after, like 6 to 8 weeks later, he still couldn't run and still couldn't cut. It was around this time that Brad Childress was upset and thought he was faking his injury or shamming or milking it or whatever you want to call it, which led to Percy getting pissed off and throwing weights at him. No, not enough? Okay, I got one more. When he was in Seattle, the torn labrum that we talked about, it was a minor tear. And the team was like, yo, he doesn't need surgery. A few weeks, he'll be fine. Percy insisted on a second opinion. Why? Due to the level of pain that he was in, and he ended up missing pretty much that whole season. Like I say, he played a little bit in like one regular season game that whole year, and then of course he came back at the one play in the Super Bowl. That was it. And again, he had those same locker room issues in Seattle. A good reason for that, to explain it, would probably be a guy that I feel like as a team, I'm like, yo, this dude is healthy, bro. Like he been, he been nursing this little baby injury for all of this time. He getting paid all this money to help our team, and he ain't helping us. That would cause a lot of resentment and would likely cause a lot of issues. On Percy's side, he would probably be pissed off because he really is in pain, and people is questioning it. Have you ever been in like severe pain over like an extended period of time? You're irritable, right? You're pissed off all the time. I mean, it takes nothing to just you snap out on somebody. I like this theory because the injuries that he would be diagnosed with would be minor or seemingly minor, but it ended up keeping him out over super long periods of time, and you never really knew what was going on with Percy because you get all right, Percy's he twisted his ankle, he's fine, weak, he might play next week, and then he's on injured reserve. It's just, now again, that is 1000% speculation, but I found it interesting, and I think it, I think it's super plausible that that's exactly what happened to Percy Harvin. And if that's true, migraines ruined his career in more ways than just one. Like, just the migraines themselves would have been bad enough, but if he developed this pain syndrome due to the migraines, that then messed everything else up with. And the dude's talent was unbelievable because he barely practiced, he barely played, he was always hurt, but every time he stepped on the field, he'd make plays. Every time, dog. Just imagine if he had a whole career where he was relatively healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's always healthy, but you know what I'm saying? Like, relatively. I honestly believe this dude could have been an all-time great if not for his migraine situation. But of course, we'll never know, and that is the sad, sad case of my boy, Percy Harvin. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, click the thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to your boy if you're new. My name is FlemLo Raps.
Yeah, you'll never know quitter, 'cause I'ma go again.